We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Aleph and Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 87a. And the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the Zaken Mamre, that's the elder who rebels against the court, he rules against the court. And the Gemara quoted the pasuk, the Brisa quoted the pasuk of Ki Poli Mimcha Davar, and the Gemara darshans, the Brisa darshans, B'mufla Shebebezin HaKosav Medaber. When it says Ki Poli, it means to say that we're talking specifically about an expert of the court who is arguing with the Sanhedrin. Rashi explains B'mufla Shebebezin, B'mumcha Lebezin, somebody who's an expert. L'mu'ute Talmud, the din of Zaken Mamre, does not apply to a Talmud, it does not apply to a student. And then again, the pasuk goes on to say Mimcha, Ki Poli Mimcha Davar. What do we learn from Mimcha? Zeh Yoetz, that refers to somebody who's a Yoetz. Rashi explains Mimcha Zeh Yoetz Shenechlak Be'ibur Hashanim, means, let's say the Zaken Mamre, he argues with something that has to do with the leap year, Hakore Sod Ve'etza. The leap year is called a secret, it's called Eitza, it's called counsel or advice, and so therefore that's what Mimcha is referring to. It's referring to some kind of argument that he has with regards to the calendar. V'chein hu omer, and the Brisa says, likewise it says in the pasuk, there's a pasuk in Nachum, it says, Mimech yotza choshev al Hashem ra, yoetz b'liyoal. It uses the word yoetz, and it starts that pasuk with Mimech. That's how we understand that Mimcha is referring to Yoetz. And the Brisa continues a Dover when it says in the pasuk again, Ki Poli Mimcha Dover. What is that referring to? Zu Halacha, that refers to Halacha, and that means to say, as Rashi explains, Zu Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. It refers to a Zaken Mamre who argues against the halacha l'Moshe Misinai, or about a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Shafolehu nereg. Even for that, the Zaken Mamre is going to be killed. And then the pasuk says La Mishpat. What's that referring to? Zehadin. That refers to din. Rashi explains La Mishpat Zehadin im nechlak bedavar halamed bedin. What that means is, let's say he argues about something that is learned out bedin gzeira shava. It's learned out, let's say, from a gzeira shava. Gam hu nerag deilu din mamish ksiv lahedya ben din ledin. So also on that, if it's something learned from a gzeira shava, he's also killed over that if he rebels with regards to such a halacha. Rashi points out it can't be din mamish. It can't be, we're talking about actual din, because that already the pasuk itself says, as we're going to see, it says bein din ledin, so therefore it's referring again to gzeira shava over here. And then it says in the pasuk bein dam ledam. What does that mean? Between blood and blood. It means bein dam nida, dam leda, dam ziva. It means there's some kind of argument with regards to dam nida, the blood of a nida, or dam leda, the blood that comes from giving birth, or dam ziva, that's the blood that's not nida blood, but it's considered ziva blood. Bein din ledin. What is bein din ledin referring to? Bein dinei nefashos, dinei mamanis, dinei makos. That means there was some argument with regards to capital cases, monetary cases, or cases involving lashes. Bein nega lenega. What's nega lenega referring to? Bein negei adam, negei botim, negei begadim. Some kind of argument with regards to tzaras on people, or on houses, or on clothing. And then the pasuk said, divrei rivos bisharecha. What is divrei? Elu hacharamim v'ha'erchen v'ha'akdeshos. The word divrei refers to charamim, things that are chayrim. They're given over to the kohanim or the Beis Hamikdash, or a person's value to the Beis Hamikdash, or something is made hektish. And rivos, what does the word rivos refer to? Zu hashkoas sota va'arifas egla. That refers to egla arufa, and refers to hashkoas sota, which is giving the sota to drink. V'taras mitzora, and also the purification of the mitzora. And bisharecha, what does the word bisharecha refer to? Zu leket shichu peya. That refers to leket shichu and peya. V'kamta mi bezdin. Then you're going to get up from bezdin. V'olisa, and you're going to go up. Melamed shebeis hamikdash gavoa me'eretz Yisrael. That teaches us that the Beis Hamikdash is the highest point in Eretz Yisrael. Ve'eretz Yisrael gavoa mikol ha'aratzos, and Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all the lands. El hamakom, and it says you're going to go up to the place. It means the place of the Sanhedrin. Melamed shehamakom gorim. We see that the place is important. The place causes. This is the place where the proper rulings are issued from. And Rashi explains divrei rivos. Again, the pasuk says divrei rivos b'sharecha havalei lemichtav devar riv. It could have just said devar riv uchsiv divrei rivos. Why does it say divrei rivos? L'rabos charamin ve'erchin ve'ekdeshos shehin boin v'cholin al yedei dibur hapel. All of these things like cherem, erchin, and hekdeshos, they all come through speech. That's why it's divrei rivos. That's why it's referring to that. And zu hashkoas sota. Then it said it refers to hashkoas sota when it says rivos. Shehi al yedei riv shebeino ve'in bala. That's because there's an argument between her and her husband. And va'arifas egla, by egla arufa shehacholol nerag al yedei meriva. Egel arufa is done when somebody is killed. We can't identify, and so in such a situation, you do the procedure of egel arufa. That also happened through some kind of argument, v'taras mitzora, and also the purification of a mitzora, she'af negoyim al yedei riv shaloshen hara him boim, because negoyim, when it comes to tzaras, that comes through the arguments of loshen hara. And then zel leket shichu peya, that refers to leket shichu and peya when it says bisharecha, shehein la'aniyim, because that goes to the poor, shekasav behen v'yachlu bisharecha, and it writes about them that they're going to eat it in their gates. It uses the word bisharecha. V'kamta mi bezdin, and then it says you're going to get up from bezdin. Midachsiv v'kamta, from the fact that it's written v'kamta mechlal debiyoshvin askinon. That sounds like we're talking about people who are sitting down. V'hainu bezdin, that refers to court. Sheyoshvin b'makom hakavua lahem, they sit in an established place adesa ochel, until the time to eat. V'sham boin kol hatzrichin lodinu lahora, and that's where everybody comes for judgment. B'chol ir v'ir, in every city. V'yazar achmonu lebezin shaloso ir, and the pasuk is warning the bezin of that city, sham machlokas beineim leilech v'lishol, that if there's a machlokas there, they have to go and they have to ask. And then the Brisa said, Malamin shebeis hamikdash gavoa me'eretz Yisrael. It shows the Beis Hamikdash is the highest point in Eretz Yisrael. V'kamta v'yolisa l'makom shva'amino in loch ir be'eretz Yisrael. You see that since it says v'yolisa, you're going to go up, that there's no city in Eretz Yisrael. She'in Yerushalayim gavoa mimeni. Yerushalayim is the highest city in Eretz Yisrael. V'eretz Yisrael gavoa mikol ha'arotzos, and Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all the lands. Tana the Brisa kamasik l'milsei. This is the Tana the Brisa concluding v'lav mehai kroyolef. And this last line, that Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all lands, is not learned from the pasuk. Well, the Kamon mefarish minal. The Gemara, as it goes on, is going to explain from where do we know that Eretz Yisrael is gavoa mikol ha'arotzos. And the Gemara continues minole. So from where do we know this idea? Because it's written in the pasuk, Lachein hinei yomim boim num Hashem chai Hashem asher helo as bnei Yisrael me Eretz Mitzrayim. It says he brought bnei Yisrael up from Eretz Mitzrayim. Kim chai Hashem asher helo v'asher hevi esezera beis Yisrael me Eretz Tzafona, brought up from the Eretz Tzafona, from the northern land, and mikol ha'arotzos, and from all lands asher hidachtem sham v'yoshvu al admosam. And so from this pasuk in Yirmiyahu, where it's talking about going up to Eretz Yisrael from all of the lands, you see that Eretz Yisrael, that's where we learn out that Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all of the lands. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbon, and the rabbis taught, Zakin Mamre, when it comes to the halacha of Zakin Mamre, Eino Chayev Ela al Davar Shazadono Kores V'Shigagaso Chatas. The Zakin Mamre is only liable to the death penalty if he argues against the Sanhedrin on something where if the person would commit that Aveira on purpose, the punishment would be Kores. If he does it by mistake, it's a Karban Chatas, meaning on severe kinds of halachas. That's where there's the halacha of Zakin Mamre. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Al davar sheikaru midivrei Torah upeirusha midivrei sofrim. It has to be something which its main source is from the Torah, and then it's explained through rabbinic interpretation. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Afilu diktuk echad midiktukei sofrim, even if it's a minusha of rabbinic interpretation, and he argues on that, that's enough for the halacha of Zakin Mamre. And the Gemara continues, my time with Rabbi Meir, what's the reason of Rabbi Meir that it has to be something severe, it has to be something involving kares and chatos? And the Gemara says, Gomar davar davar, it's because Rabbi Meir learns a Gezeira Shava from the word davar. Ksevach, it's written over here by the Zakin Mamre, ki polei mimcha davar la mishpat, it uses the word davar. Uksevasam, and it's written over there in the V'nelam davar me'enei hakol, the pasuk says, V'nelam davar me'enei hakol, the full pasuk over there is Vim kol adas Yisrael yishku, it's talking when all of Klal Yisrael sins, they make this mistake. V'nelam davar me'enei hakol, they don't know exactly what the halacha is, it's hidden from them, and so it uses the word davar over there. And malahalan davar shechayev al zdona kares v'al shegagaso chatas, just like over there, we're talking about some kind of error that was made in something that you're chayev if you do it on purpose kares, and you're chayev if you do it by mistake a chatos. So just like that's the case over there, afkan so too over here by Zakin Mamre, davar shechayev al zdona kares v'al shegagaso chatas. We're specifically talking about something where the person would be liable to kares if it's done on purpose, and he's liable to carbon chatas if it's done by mistake. And the Gemara continues for Rabbi Yehuda, and what's the source of Rabbi Yehuda that it has to be ikaro midivrei Torah, but then the interpretation is rabbinic, because the pasuk says al pi haTorah asher yorucha. It says in the pasuk al pi haTorah asher yorucha. We learn from there ad diika Torah v'yorucha. We learn from there that it has to be that there's Torah and also yorucha. It has to be that it comes ikaro min haTorah, and then there's rabbinic interpretation. For Rabbi Shimon, and what about Rabbi Shimon who said even if it's diktuk echad mi diktukei sofrim, even a manusha of rabbinic interpretation, and that's from the pasuk. This is the same pasuk. It says Asher Yagidu L'cha Min HaMakom Ahu. That's the same pasuk which says V'yasisa Al Pi Hadavar Asher Yagidu L'cha. You have to follow what they tell you, the rulings that they issue. And we learn from that pasuk of Min HaMakom Ahu Afilu Kol Du, even anything, any kind of interpretation, that's enough for the halacha of Zaken Mamre. And the Gemara continues, Amalei Rafuna Bar Chinan ol Rava. Rafuna Bar Chinan said to Rava, Tirgama li loha masnisa ali b'd Rabbi Meir. Can you interpret for me that brisa we had above according to Rabbi Meir? The reference over here is to this brisa that we had at the top of the Amud. So it goes through all of these different possibilities of Zaken Mamre. So it talks about Bein Dam Nida, Dam Leida, Dam Ziva, all of these different examples. And according to Rabbi Meir, it has to be something that always involves something that on the Zedono, if it's done on purpose, it's going to be a punishment of kares and shigagaso. So what he's asking is, can you interpret that brisa, show how every single one of these things that they're arguing about, that the Zaken Mamre is arguing against the Sanhedrin, show how it can involve kares and carbon chatas. That's what it means when it says Tirgam Ali Loha Masnisa Ali b'd Rabbi Meir. Explain that brisa according to Rabbi Meir. We're going to go through all of the different items that are mentioned in that brisa. Amar le Rava le Rapapa. So Rava said to Rapapa, "Poke Tirgam Olei, go, and you should interpret it for him. Give him the interpretation." And so he explains, Ki Yipole, again, the pasuk said, Ki Yipole, b'mufla shebebezin hakasim medaber. Again, we're talking about someone who's an expert, according to the court, not a student. And then it said, Mimcha ze yoetz. The first one was a yoetz, which had to do with the calendar. Sheyodeya la'aber shanim v'likvoa chadashim. It means the person has to know how to declare leap years and to establish, to fix the months. Kiddetanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Hein heidu, they testified, it's referring to Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Papayas and Meseches Edyas, they testified, Shema Abram es Hashana, Kol Adar. They said that you can declare a leap year the entire Adar. You have all of the month of Adar to declare that it's a leap year. Shahayu Omer, because the others, the Chacham, had said Ad HaPurim, that you only have until Purim. And so here you have an example of a machlokus which can lead to an issue that's relevant to Kares. De'ila Hai Gisa, because if you're going to go in that direction, Kashari Chametz B'Pesach, you might end up permitting Chametz on Pesach. De'ila Hai Gisa, and if you go in the other direction, Kashari Chametz B'Pesach, you might end up permitting Chametz on Pesach. Meaning to say, this is an example. If the Zaken Mamre were to argue in something like this in terms of whether or not it's a leap year, because there's a question until when do you have to declare a leap year, that can involve kares, because now you don't know exactly when Pesach is, and so someone's going to end up eating chametz on Pesach. That's an isser that involves kares. And the Gemara continues, davar, the word davar, zeh halacha, the Brisa said that the word davar is coming to include halacha l'Moshe miSinai, zu hilchas achad asr. This refers to the halacha of 11. This is relevant to Nida and Zava. To Itmar, because it was stated asiri on the 10th day. There are 11 days where if the woman sees blood, it's not considered to be dam Nida. You have to actually wait one day to the next day to the next day, 3 days, to determine whether or not the woman is at what's called a Zava Gedola. So what if it's on the 10th day? So there's a machlokus over there. Amoraim, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asiri Ketashi. Rabbi Yochanan says we look at the 10th day like the 9th day. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar Reish Lakish says Asiri Ka'achad Asr. We view the 10th day like the 11th day. And the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Asiri Ketashi, the 10th day is like the 9th day. Matashi Boy Shimor, just like on the 9th day you have to wait and watch till the next day to see if she sees blood. Af Asiri Boy Shimor, the same thing is true on the 10th day. Reish Lakish Amar Asiri Ka'achad Asr. Reish Lakish says the 10th day is like the 11th day. Ma'achad asar lo boyishim, or just like the 11th day, you don't need to wait till the next day to see. Afasiri lo boyishim, or so too when it comes to the 10th day, you don't need shimor. And Rashi explains, Hilchos Achad Asr, we're talking about the 11th day. Yom Acharon Shal Yud Aleph Shebei Nida L'Nida. There are 11 days between, those are the days of Nida, so there are 11 days between the time when a woman is going to become a Nida. So those 11 days, if she sees blood, we assume that is not Dam Nida. Those are those 11 days. And we're talking now specifically, the Hilchos Achad Asr is referring to the 11th day, that last day. Kaimolon Yud Aleph Yom Shebei Nida L'Nida Halacha L'Moshe miSinai. Now we're looking for something that's Halacha L'Moshe miSinai. So Rashi points out the fact that there's 11 days between Nida L'Nida, between the periods of a woman. That's Halacha L'Moshe miSinai. Meaning, Misha Avru Zayin Yemei HaNida, from when the 7 days of Nida are finished, Eina Choseres Lios Nida, she's not going to become a Nida again, Ad Sheyavru Yud Aleph Yom, until 11 days pass. T'chol Damim Sharoa Bahem Dam Zivohem. We say in those 11 days, if she sees blood, then we assume that's what's called Dam Ziva. V'imroasa Bahem Yom O Yomayim Ritzufim. Let's say she sees blood then 1 or 2 days days straight. Shomeres Yom Gimel, she has to wait to see on the third day. V'im paska v'lo rasa bo, now if she doesn't see on that third day, tovelas bo biyom, so then she can, on that day, she can immerse utahor and she's pure. V'im rasa, however, if she sees Gimel Yom Ritzufim for 3 consecutive days, have a ziva, then it's considered ziva, l'karban v'letvilas mayim chayim, then she needs to bring a karban and she needs to immerse in mayim chayim and flowing water. V'ifligu Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon Lakish b'hilchas Yom Achron. So in reference to that last day, there's a machlokas amoraim Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, and as we're going to see, of course, it's relevant to issues of kares. Rabbi Yochanan Amar halacha achas nem rabo. Reish Lakish Amar shtei halachas nem rabo. Rabbi Yochanan says one halacha is said by it. Reish Lakish says 2 halachas is said. Lechalag mishilafanav, that it's different from before it. V'ach pluksa b'shili Meseches nida. This machlokas is at the end of Meseches nida. V'itmar betarti lishnei. There's actually 2 versions of it. V'chan minayu nakan hacha. The Gemara here is just selecting one of the versions. And the issue is Asiri. What about on day 10? Rabbi Yochanan Amar hareyu ketashi. Rabbi Yochanan says it's like the 9th day. Ma haroa b'tashi tzrich lios shomeres asiri. Just like let's say she would have seen on the 9th day, so she certainly needs to wait to see if she's going to see on the next day, on the 10th day. Sharei ru'uya b'tzir of gimel aziva, because you have a possibility of 3 straight days, 9, 10, and 11. V'shem matira b'asiri harei shnayim. Maybe she will see blood on the 10th day. That's 2 days. V'tachzor v'tira b'acharosher. Then she's going to see again on the 11th day harei gimel. That could be 3 days. So obviously on the 9th day you're going to have to be a shomeres yom keneged yom. So afaroa b'asiri. So if she sees on the 10th day tzricha lios shomeres acharosher, she's still going to have to see on the 11th day what's going to happen. Now, even though it's not possible to have 3 straight days in this situation, because the 12th day is not going to count to determine that she's a ziva, because again, if you don't see 3 straight days within those 11, that 12th day is really going to be the beginning of when she's considered a nida. Halacha achas nem rabo, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan was saying. The halacha is on the 11th day. There was one halacha lecholek mishilafanav that it's different from before it. Umayu, and what is it referring to? The low boy shimor leo shomerish name maser negdo, that you don't need to wait till the next day. From the 11th day, you don't need to be a shomeres yom to halav mimei zivu, because that's not part of the days of ziva. Aval shava l'shalafanav leo shimor lirias asiri keshem sho asiri shimor lirias tashi, but rather it's going to be you're going to look at it from the days before, because the 11th day can count for day 3 in terms of 9, 10, and 11, just like obviously the same thing 10, you're going to look back at 9, you're going to look at those 3 days. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. That's what it means to say that Asiri is considered like Tashi. And Rashi continues, Reish Lakish says Asiri ka'acharasar, that the 10th day is like the 11th day. Ma'acharasar lo boy shimor, just like on the 11th day there is no shimor. Shnei masar, you're not going to wait to see the 12th day what is. Sharei ein hashnei masar mimei haziva, because again the 12th day is not part of the days of ziva. Af Asiri lo boy shimor, so too on the 10th day there's no need for shimor. Leos shomeres yud aleph, to go and see whether she sees on 11. De lo nemra shomeres yom neged yom, because according to Reish Lakish there's no halacha of shomeres yom keneged yom ela beruya letzir of gimel, unless you're able to accumulate 3 consecutive days. Hilkach l'Reish Lakish shtei halachos nemru b'yom acharasar. That's why according to Reish Lakish there are 2 halachas on the day 11. Lecholek mishar yom, that's different than other days. Shalafan of the days before it. Achas she'eno tzarech shimor. Number 1, you don't need shimor on that day. V'achas she'en nasa shimor l'ri asiri, and also you're not doing a shimor for day 10 on 11. That's what it means in 2 ways. And so now let's say the Zaken Mamre argues with regards to this. V'yivlog Zaken Mamre v'Rabbanan b'hilchas acharasar. If the Zaken Mamre and the Rabbanan, meaning the Sanhedrin, they argue about a halacha relevant to the day 11, k'deifligu Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, just like this machlokas Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, have it davar shezadono kares. That is going to be involving kares. Al shomeres yom keneged yom, because if a person is with a shomeres yom keneged yom, chayiv kares, he is chayiv kares. K'nechsiv kol yemei zov tumasa v'darshin yemei v'chol yemei. Again, we darshan that from the pasuk. So this is something that involves kares, and so this would be an example of a halacha l'Moshe Sinai that involves kares. And the Gemara continues, what about mishpat? We say mishpat zehadin, that refers to din. Again, that's things that are learned, let's say, from a gezerah shava, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis.